Welcome to the Leathersellers presents Outside a Craft with me, Yusuf Osman. A podcast that seeks to rediscover the purpose and meaning of craft as we navigate complex issues that we face as individuals and together as a society. So Uzo, welcome to Outside a Craft.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm getting there. So how did you feel when you got that phone call from a random person at 10:30 asking you to come onto a podcast?
I was expecting a different call, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so you were ready for something?
I was ready for something and I had a meeting, so I thought, okay, great. And I was designing something. I thought, okay, if I can, and I thought, okay. And you said, Yusuf, I'm like, podcast. I saw a meme. It said, Amazon, please limit all podcast equipments to people. Too many podcasts going on. I was like, oh, how appropriate. So I was like, all right, I'll go on a podcast then. It must be a sign. So yeah, thanks for inviting me anyway.
Thank you for saying yes at such short notice.
Okay. Always happy to help another crafter. So yeah.
But how did you come to that decision? Because a lot of people would be nervous or think that they need to be prepared or anything really, but I didn't really sense any hesitation in your voice. It was more about the logistics of getting here within an hour so that we could record something.
To be honest, there was not really much to it. I have a very I've tried to develop a very, very efficient sifting process when it comes to saying yes to things.
Right.
And usually what takes precedence is if they're a crafter, it should be a quick yes or no. Because I know what it's like to start something from scratch and not have a lot of idea of direction to go to or be clueless in a way. So if I'm helping another crafter, it's usually a quick yes. If I have the means or the resources to fulfill that.
Yeah.
If I don't, then I'll start thinking about the rest.
And that comes from your own experience of starting as a craftsperson?
Yeah, I think so. In general, that's probably part of my character anyway. So for a crafter, it's so much more easier.
So your character is to say yes, you mean?
My character is to be accommodating.
Accommodating.
As much as I can, within reason. This is where the caveats start coming in,
But that's what you have to learn, right? Because I think for many of us, saying yes is something we gravitate to, and saying no is often harder. So, you mentioned that you figured out that sifting process.
Yeah.
And that translates into
saying no is difficult. It is difficult.
Of your work. I'm glad you didn't say no today.
Me too.
And I hope you feel the same at the end also.
I'm okay. I'll be fine. When did you start Leathercraft?
Same time as you, really. So 2014, I did my first class. Did you even do a class?
I've not done one class.
You still haven't done one, which is just amazing, right? You just went straight in.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like maybe there's things that I don't know that I need to know.
I think that's the thing that we all struggle with, because nobody ever knows everything.
Yes.
And so it's always about the mindset. So like whether you start and you learn on the job or whether you start like me and you wait, there'll always be something that you don't know. So it's more of the mindset of whether you're operating from a mindset of lack, which is how I seem to operate, whereas you're just like, go for it.
Right.
And even though you don't know and you maybe think you don't know, but you still go for it.
Right.
There's not, for me, I don't think there's a right way.
Yeah.
But it's just where you get to in the end, because we'll always not know stuff.
Yes, there's always going to be an unknown. So I think I have 2 points to that. I think first, with me, I was a bit more, audacious. I don't know. I was just very like, go.
Yeah.
Perhaps as character, I don't know. But one thing I will say is that throughout all this journey, everything that I do, my actual invitation is not that I'm selling a perfect piece.
Yeah.
I'm actually selling a journey. Like, come with me. Like when I started Franco on the web, my first like version 01 or 1 of the website, I had pictures of my hands, and just say, okay, look, like, see what I make, and if you like it, great. Come on the journey. I'm learning. I'm a self-taught crafter, so you're coming along with me through this journey. And actually, till today, that translates in what I actually sell. So I'm making a distinct decision not to go too fine of leather crafting, because then it becomes, you can always buy a very beautiful bag that's very well made from an array, like a number of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Different brands, different styles. You can always do that. But I think I try and make accessible pieces that, it's its own story for you, between you and the actual item. So for me, like if I have a wallet, if I treat it really pristinely, because I like the fact that it's leather crafted, it's made by someone, I know where it comes from, I understand the material, I understand this whole story, it's great. Whereas some people, they have all that, but then they want to use it as an everyday piece. They want it to marked up, they want it, and some people it's more of a mantelpiece. They still want it looking pristine. So I will always want some of my goods to be, and then I know there are people definitely to be used, but everyone uses it differently. And I think, I guess I feel better knowing that I'm not making something that should be pampered. And you can still quite see the fact that the craft is at the heart of it, or it's the core thing. So it's kind of like, it might look a bit, I don't know, not so pristine, not so fine, but it's still quite clean. It's still quite, attractive. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one.
Well, it's things that I have been thinking about, and even thinking about the act of this podcast to kind of go meta about it. This is my second episode, and already this has become something which, how can I say, is not planned,
Right.
And just thinking about how I wanted to have this podcast pan out, because for me this is a new venture, and so now when I'm thinking about it as a craft in itself, I realize that after listening to the first episode, I'm judging myself based on this idea of how I want something to be. I don't know what it is, but I'm judging myself. And if I link it back to my craft, it was the same thing. I waited so long because I expected myself to be this hypothetical person who made these hypothetical things, and you judge yourself by these standards,
Right.
and you think you're not ready. And so what I'm learning from this experience right now, and also looking back and learning about how I was in that journey of my crafting career so far, it's that so often we are afraid to come as we are. And that's what you've done so successfully, which is you said, I'm starting my craft. This is where I am.
Yeah.
I'm trying. This is where I am. And this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And are you with me? You were not like, let me get to a stage before I'm allowed to be seen. And I think generally we have a problem with that in society as humans.
Right.
We don't want to be seen as trying, as failing, as going somewhere. And really that is actually what is the thing that connects us. When people see that we are trying and failing humans, and we can bring them on the journey. But
I think what really made it easy for me was I actually really liked leathercraft. So I cherished the space it gave me to just be by myself and not be doing anything else, not being a computer screen. So it was a relatively, like, I don't know, it's an easy decision to always pick up a mallet, an awl, a blade, some thread, and make something, or pen and paper, design something and make it. But actually, if I'm being honest, I've tried to remind myself to always think, what do I really want? When I started it anyway.
yeah.
And actually what I really want is to be making. So when I'm making, I'm just happy. So it's easy for me to do that. And I guess it makes it easier just to be, like, come along with the process when I'd already had fun and I'd already been, like, peaceful in making. So it's like, this is the product of that time. So I'm happy to put it out there, however it looks.
Can you tell me a bit more about what you see as your vision for the brand, and why is it called Frank Horn? Because that's not your name.
Yeah. So that's the earlier when I told you about the whole, like, Nigeria stuff. I don't know. So starting Frank Horn was actually an emotional thing for me, and I don't really talk about it too much.
Why?
It's just, I don't know, because I get croaky and I start feeling a bit away. It's just it's definitely self-discovery. It's definitely self-discovery, but I think it's like I don't know, I probably have a weird way of labeling, like, human evolution. So I only happened across, so it's called Frank Horn. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
Because, so my middle name is Francis. It was my dad's name. and my grandfather's name as well. So it's a homage to them. And obviously horn is a homage to the material.
You were working
Exactly. Yeah. So I lost my dad in 2004.
Right.
So that was the whole process of like, I don't know, being in an environment where, I mean, I always went back to Nigeria, but now I'm going back to Nigeria for a different thing, to bury my dad and, you know, everything that comes with. So, yeah.
How old were you at that time?
Oh, I was 19.
So really young.
I was.
Yeah.
To some, yeah.
It was a young age to
It was a
generally
young
use your
age,
father.
yeah. So
And
it's
so
a
that
homage to
changed
them.
you.
100%. Yeah.
And that's what.
That's
how.
that was the beginning.
That was the
genesis.
introduction to create.
Yeah.
So did you seek to be creative as a way of?
No, I
learning
always
about
was actually.
yourself
I always
at
was.
that
So,
time?
you know, as a child, that's weird to say, as a younger person, but as a child, I was always creative, and, you know, my parents would say the same thing, breaking things, putting it together. I was quite a technical person. So, but I think how I expressed it was more through like technology than craft.
Yeah.
So I used to like design and make aircraft, like model aircraft. So that was kind of like a great pastime for me. So I'd always had this maker in me, and I'd always actually been creative. But this is a different type of creativity where I'm looking at actual craft and not just like technology and stuff. So yeah, it was a bit weird, but yeah. So that was the genesis of Frank Horn. So it was a homage to like the people before me and the material. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
But there's no horn in your business anymore.
No. Well, there is. When I make bespoke products, I offer parts of it, you know, but in general, no. It's another aspect of making entirely. It's just like, you know, you make accessories. Making shoes would be an entirely different thing for you in your space right now, in terms of machinery, how you set it up, and, you know, what you do in a day-to-day. So, yeah, you know, it wasn't my dream to be a leather crafter, honestly, but it wasn't also my dream to be like a craft of horns either, you know. I attained the skills. I enjoyed doing that, but overall I found more pleasure in dealing with leather than I did with horn. Yeah. But I'm always trying to find ways that I can bring it back in, so I don't know, make it make sense in a way, you know, like full circle. But I'm not really driven by that. I'm still driven just by continue making and developing my skills. So yeah, it goes on, I guess.
It's interesting that you say about how you expressed your creativity as a child, because I think many people struggle with identifying themselves as creatives, especially because they might be working in jobs. And when I teach, so many people come and they say, I've never been creative, I'm not a creative person. And I didn't identify myself as a creative person, but when I look back, I might not have had access to being creative as we see now, maybe with colours or making things. And what sort of strands do you have in your business? Because you said you make your own, obviously you make your own products and you make them all yourself. And then you make products for other brands?
Other brands and other companies, you know, like hoteliers. I'm still trying to find more points of penetration where I can actually like insert myself into a business or see what I can do for someone or some place. And when it comes to interiors, kind of making, I don't know, leather like furnishings, I don't really do upholstery, but I'm kind of like upskilling in upholstery now, because someone say, hey, listen, I have this chair that needs, you know, redoing, or I just need something to put on top, or I have this bay window and I want like a Frank Horn, like, you know, cushion for it. So I'm finding like I'm applying myself in these spaces, but then also like a restaurant making menus or coasters for hotels or folders for, you know, rooms and key holders and stuff like that. Yeah. So there are different strands, and I'm open to all of them, unless it's so like exhausting that it makes no sense for how small I am, because I'm still quite constrained by space and cost. So.
And is it just you working in your
It is just me.
business?
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you manage
I don't.
that?
I don't. I'm crawling from place to place mentally. So I think just by knowing what I need to do, structure, organization, and if it gets really busy, like Christmas time, then I'm allocating a space where I do nothing, where I, for the first 6 hours of the day, I don't have a phone. I turn off all the do not disturbs, no noise, and I make. And then there are times where, okay, actually I might have to get someone in to help. And I've been looking and I've been trying.
Yeah.
And I have had people come and but I guess it touches back on that thing that looks glamorous on Instagram, but in reality, it's painstakingly, you have to be very careful. And leather's unforgiving.
Yeah.
If you mark it up the wrong way, that's it. If you cut it the wrong way, that's it. So, I don't know. I would say I'm managing terribly, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it.
But I think it's refreshing to hear that, because we all sit in our studios on our own and we post our happy photos.
Yeah.
And we're literally all just drowning. And it is hard to do all of the things.
Yeah.
And it is hard to move it from a hobby to a business. A hobby to something that sustains itself, and then to take it to a next level where it's a business, but where you then also want to maintain the things that are important to you, which is the making.
Yeah.
Because that's the struggle of how do you still maintain that without how do you grow the profit? How do you grow the brand? And it's an investment to bring people in. You have to still train them. You have to still get them up to speed. Yeah. And it is hard, because the few times I've had people working for me, you then end up spending all your time
hovering over them and correcting them and saying,
you end up training them, and then you lose time. So it is hard to even take that the next step. So
I've been thinking about that actually. I've been thinking about it a lot. I'm sure you have been as well. The right way to do it, or the best way to do it for you, for me. And I guess our respective environment. It's just a very difficult thing when there's so much to factor in. Your daily costs, your actual vision, what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it, because that's another big part. Do you want a business that just where you churn stuff out, or do you want a business that's sustainable in every aspect? And I know people like greenwashing is a big thing now, and people say things they don't really mean and they don't fully understand.
They don't understand it themselves.
They really don't understand it. So for me, it's like, okay, some parts, like understanding the impact. There's always impact. That's the first thing. Limiting it, great. But also, like, things cost things. Not just like financially, but there's a cost to everything.
There's a cost to everything.
To everything.
Not necessarily financial, but like cost to environment.
The environment is a cost to everything, and
there's a cost to everything that we do in our existence.
You kind of have to accept. And I don't know. I read this. I think it's a German study on they compared like different leathers. So I had quite a drastic interaction in my studio. So, what do you do here? Oh, I make leather goods. Oh, do you have any vegan leather? And I was like, no, I don't. I work with leather. I wouldn't choose to pick up a material that still requires resources. You just don't understand it, and that's fine. But but no, it's bad to kill animals. Of course, it is. It is. But are you a vegan? No, I eat. So you do eat meat. There is a gap in understanding for sure, but it wasn't my place to, I don't know, in that moment anyway, teach that person that whole thing. Only for them to send me an email. I still have the email till today. Hi, I'm shooting a video for this brand and would like to use your space. I don't know if you remember we spoke about leather in your studio? I was like, I remember quite well, I said, no, just remind me of the instance. And they did. I'm like, then I look at the brand and this is not something that I do, but I find it quite interesting that you had such, drastic views on real leather to vegan leather, and you're making a video and you're making money from a company that is using terrible products, terrible materials, that have a bigger impact.
They were using vegan leather, you mean? Vegan alternative.
Yeah, well, they were using like
polyurethane.
Yeah, polyurethane.
Ultimately, everything that we do has an impact. And the way that we are conditioned now is to think that we can live in a world where we have no impact. And that's not the case. And we have to consider our impact and also feel how that feel that for us. Because what everything in the world wants to do is to remove the feelings from us so that we act automatically, whether that be responding to something and buying something or going out and spending on an online shopping spree. It's to remove any feelings we might have, good or bad. I think we need to feel them. We need to feel guilt. We need to feel happiness. We need to feel all of the things so that we can make the decisions based on our values. Because if we don't, then we'll get led by whatever we're told. And so it's obviously an easy thing to say,
it is.
Killing animals is bad. But when we look at the nuance of any conversation, you realize that there are different ways of being, because we all want to get to the same place. And there are different ways of doing things that can achieve the same outcome in the end. So it's for me, it's not a difficult conversation to explain. I personally am just making sure that everything in my life is using natural materials rather than things that are ultra processed. Because I think that anything that is ultra processed is because of wanting to extract more profit. And I think it's better to engage in something and improve it. So by me being involved in the leather industry and accepting that just because I use leather, that doesn't mean that I advocate for animals being mistreated. But then I need to confront that and say, does that mean that just because I don't advocate for it, that means it doesn't happen? No, it still happens. Okay, so what can I do to make sure that as someone that uses leather and that is also against animal cruelty, how can I engage in systems to make sure that we improve that? But if I just exit from it, then, and if people just exit from everything, that it doesn't change the world. It just means that you're not being a part of it.
I think it's a difficult thing, and I feel exactly as you feel. But I think there's just one thing is I don't know if I can like be so accommodating in educating at that specific moment, if you know what I mean. Like someone knocks on your door while you're making, you have competing priorities, you know what I mean? There are things that need to get done. And maybe this is not the best moment for me to tell you about what I think about this and how I feel, and that my actions in countering my impact or otherwise. And it's an intricate maze to kind of, like maneuver. And I think there needs to be more clarity what people are actually buying when it comes to alternative materials, and I don't know, I did this whole video and I just thought it just felt negative. So I never actually published it, because I think it was negative, possibly if I'm being honest about how I felt. And that came out in the video, but I had the study right next to me. I'm thinking, but it shows that this is the real geeky side. Textiles, like the strength of leather compared to the alternatives is unmatched. The longevity of leather compared to the alternative is unmatched. The the actual like eco cycle, the full circle. You take vegan lettuce, you bury it, will decompose. Some of these alternatives will not. So it's for me, it's like the information is still there. I just have to find a good way of bringing it out for the people that do follow me and like understand what I do. But I will say though, in having conversations with people, there are more positive outcomes. Like saying to a vegan, the best bet is actually a vegetarian wallet if you want something that lasts and has less impact. How is that? Well, the fact that it lasts longer and it has no petroleum derivatives and there's no PU and there's this and that. He's like, I didn't think about it. And I said, okay, you've actually also bought an alternative leather wallet. How is it going? Not very well. This is it. This is why I want.
Show you.
This is why I'm asking you what you can do. I'm like, this is 7 years old. That's a difference, So, there is real life examples out there, but also it comes down to responsibility and how much responsibility you feel you have in educating someone in that moment of time or spending time out to do a video. But I think it's also beneficial to us because we actually encouraging and educating people on why what we do is better and how, I don't want to say better, people might have issues with that, but why it is probably
Why it's important to
superior
you.
material. Yeah, why
Yeah.
it's important to me as well.
I think just in the act of making, you're already doing it because you're already communicating your values, and
I hope so.
that's education in itself.
Yeah, I hope so.
I wanted to also ask about the process of you going through this journey of your brand to date, because you said that you've still not taken any lessons. You just completely self-taught and you just went in it all by yourself. How has it been? For example, for me, I'm at Cockpit, which is still very much an institution in itself.
Yeah.
And so I've gone down the route of going through different institutions and having studios and stuff like that. But you literally learned something, or you learned something yourself. You went to the market, you did it, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, if you will. And has that been how it's been the whole time? Like, how have you even figured things out throughout the way?
I'll refer to my mom first. She said to me, "Oh, the things you made before were better because they were hand stitched." I said, "Man, I still hand stitch." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "You know what it is? The difference is the thread was thicker then. I had no knowledge on thread weights and you know what I mean, different sizes of thread for different applications, for bags to wallets, yada yada. But I've managed it all by, I guess, luckily, I've had a wallet, I've had a belt, I've had a bag, so I can actually compare what I'm making to what's in front of me. It's not always great, but it's different. So I asked myself, okay, is this the difference that I'm going to push? If it is, then I'm okay with it. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's good that I haven't learned formally. I think it's good and bad, actually, to be honest with you, because I think I still feel like I said earlier on, I might be missing out on something, you know? Like, perhaps I feel my whole designing process might be smoother if I take some formal education on this. What
do you think would be different?
Like sampling and templating, do you know what I mean? So when I started, I was always like cutting paper out. Okay, it looks about right, that's the size, and then I'll measure it, and then that's great. I'll use that as a template. And then obviously I know how to use CAD, so I started using CAD because that was a quicker process. So I can literally draw out the shape. If I needed to print it out, compare it, cut that, you know, and I still do that. But I bought my splitter from a guy who made leather goods, and he had a bunch of all these like templates on his wall, and I was like, oh shit, that looks good, but the amount of space you would need for all the trials is like, it's quite. Whereas I have a drive that has all my designs in it. If I need to, I can print it out. So I guess I don't know if it's safer that way. But having to go from computer to table, I imagine may be harder, whereas templating on card. So I template on card, but I don't know if the way I'm doing it is right.
But
It works.
you're assuming that, right? So you actually have no idea.
I have no idea.
So you're doing something, it works for you, you have a product, and yet you're still judging that process and assuming that there's some
Because I'm
person out
always-
there or something out there that's doing it right.
No, I'm always like infatuated with waste. And sometimes that can be time as well. That's the biggest one is, am I spending too much time in designing? Because
But you don't know.
I don't
You're
know.
just assuming that there's a right way of
So I have
doing
that
it
question.
where someone is saving time. Because that happens to me too. Throughout the whole process of me making, I do not trust myself. So I'm making it just like you're making your patterns, and you're trusting that you're not trusting in your process. And of course there are different ways of doing things, right? Somebody might template differently.
Yeah,
Somebody
I question
might,
my process.
Yeah, I think that's the
but
difference.
I question it.
Yeah, which is good.
I question
suppose.
it. The main thing is, okay, could I have done that quicker?
Could you have done it better or better for you or differently?
more efficient?
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. Maybe there is no right way, and
I don't
know.
think there is a right way. No,
You think there is?
No.
You don't think there is?
No,
Right.
I don't think there is a right way. But I think there are. You can learn from the ways that
People have
people
done
do.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there's just your way.
Yeah.
But you can learn from other people and say, I like that bit. How you do something, I can incorporate that into what I do to make things better for me. And I think that's where the thing about education can get in the way, especially for craft, because you can think, like I did, that I don't know. And now that's something I have to challenge within myself, which is before I go out and do something, I always think, oh, but I don't know. I need to know. And yes, of course, to a degree, we do need to know and we do need to learn.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be something that holds you back, because you will always not know something. In 10 years' time, you'll be doing something, you'll always not know something. It's the element of being a human, but also just in business, you're always, like before you didn't know how to take good photographs. Now you do. So
True.
it's a fine balance between
There is a balance.
being ignorant and just not like questioning it all, and then letting it completely stop you and think, I've got to know all the things before I can take action.
Yeah, I think that's probably
because you
why,
will never know all of the things.
That's probably why I continue, is because at the end of the day, I still have an end product. I still actually create this thing. I still do it.
You are doing
so
it.
I'm not. Yeah. So I'm not always. I'm not like downtrodden on B. I'm thinking, could I have done it better? Maybe, I don't know. You know. And then I think, okay, cool. But if the actual objective is to have a final product, I reached the actual goal. I crossed that line.
And you're selling them.
And it's selling.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, okay, cool. That's why I haven't done it. That's why. Where did you train, or where did you take a class?
I've taken a few classes with different craftspeople, so that's what I did.
Yeah.
Because in this country there isn't like
an
formal
institute.
training as such. You can go to saddlery school, but you can't go and do a year and learn how to make leather goods. So
I think that's changed now. You can now, can't you?
Can you in this country?
You can.
Maybe.
it's
Apart from a
not
degree,
like, oh right, yeah.
Like you can go to a fashion school and learn how to make accessories and shoes, but I'd already done a degree and I wasn't going to go and do another
degree.
one. So for me, it was just about how can I learn things and then practice it myself. So I think in total, I might have just done 8 weeks of learning over the whole time, if that. So it still is really by practicing.
Practice is always going to yield.
Yeah.
I don't know, something, a better product, a better process. I don't know, but I really like the idea of practicing, because I really like the idea of getting my hands dirty and figuring it out. I do get frustrated though.
It's very frustrating.
I have a shape, and it's not really, because, it's not just about designing sometimes. It's also about, okay, you have to make 50 of these or 20 of these. Like if I do get like 10 orders, I have to make it. This is not going to be easy. So it's also changing how I make. So that's where the most frustration comes from me, where I'm designing something and I have an image or a vision of what I want the end product to be, and getting it there is difficult.
It's very difficult.
It's difficult. And that's why I think if I have some training,
I think that's the difference. What I have to teach myself is that actually part of the creative process is frustration.
Yeah.
And it's managing that.
Man.
You're always going to be frustrated because even if someone teaches you, let's just say you go to a school and they teach you in their school on their machinery with their tools.
Yeah.
As soon as you go back to yours, it's going to be different. So then you're going to be frustrated.
Yeah.
So I think the whole creative journey is just knowing that you're always going to be frustrated, managing that, and then learning through practice. And even then you might be frustrated. Like I learn something, I'll be super frustrated, and then that's always been something that stalled me because I think I'm frustrated because I don't know how to do it. It's not, it's just a natural part of the process.
You think so? It's good to hear you say that. No one's ever said that.
Yeah, it's a natural part of the process.
So the stalling is a natural part of the process. Yeah, it's part of the process.
Because you're going to go and do something yourself. It's just like when you're a kid, I imagine. Someone can teach you how to walk, but you're still going to fall over 10 million times.
Well, do you think kids are frustrated? They probably are frustrated.
They probably are frustrated. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They probably are frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, get it together, legs. Yeah, I do get that. But also, this is the thing about being in your own space and being in your mind, which is why I like leathercraft.
Yeah.
No, but it's not that I have no one, but it's just the fact that I'm consumed by this.
You're consumed by your frustration, yeah.
Not just my frustration, I'm consumed by the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the frustration part is the part that, however, it derives the most pleasure once you cross that line, you get it done. So I get it.
Then it starts all over again.
Then it starts all over again, and then you have another design to do, and it's like, I get it.
But I think that's part of the creative process, because even when I make a bag, I'll learn something, I'll come in my studio, I'll practice it, I'll hate it, I'll be frustrated, I want to destroy it and kill it, and then I might get it. But then you think that you'll get it the same when you do it again. But that doesn't happen, because then you'll say, I know I can improve this part. And so you want to improve it. So then you have changed your process, and then you'll get frustrated again. So in a way, we also bring it upon ourselves because we're never happy. And so we want to be like, oh, I've learned something, but now I can improve something. And so you want to change it. So you then, it's just a constant process of learning to improve and be frustrated. So,
but do you get frustrated when you are designing and you're making, or you're trying to conceptualize something, and you need on your own? There's no one else to like bounce things off.
Yeah, that's the.
I think that's
the hard part.
That's the hard part. Yeah.
But it's also something that I love, because I love the process of getting lost in getting lost in the process. So I love being absorbed by something. I think for me, it's to recognize that the frustration is there, and it can sit there, and it can be my invisible friend, but it doesn't have to control the story. Like I can just pat it on the head and say.
So would you say your attitude's changed now as a person since you became a creator to before you were a creator? Are you more patient? Or are you less patient? Which might be a thing.
I think it's just changed in terms of where the frustration is. Like before, the frustration would be externalized. Now the frustration is internalized. So before, you can be mad about your job, right? Now it's all on me. So I think that's what I have loved about the process of craft over these 7 years, because it's been a wholly personal journey, because you're in the studio. I'm in the studio on my own. I am responsible for everything. And then the way you are is how I've learned to grow. So then because you can sit in the studio and be frustrated and hate yourself, and then you think, but what's going on here? Why am I behaving this way? Why am I acting this way? So I think for me, the journey of craft up to this point has been very interesting, because it's been personally transformative, because you learn about how you respond to yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you engage with other people, and all of the things that come with it, because it is a very personal journey. And so that development is what I have found fascinating about it, because it's been transformative.
Right.
Because it allows for reflection. Well, I've made it something.
Yeah. So what is success for you? I just want to compare it to how I feel about things.
It's a difficult one, because I don't know if we can ever extract meaning of success from the knowledge that it has to provide financially. This is just the world in which we live in, but I am trying as much as I can to remind myself to remove money from the equation, because it doesn't matter who you ask at what stage, they will always say they've got a problem with money. So if I am making money the driver of why I do things or why I feel a certain way, then it's going to lead me in a direction that is motivated by either having not enough money or wanting more money, So I try to remind myself that I will always have that anxiety. Everybody has that anxiety.
But if you remove money,
yes.
what is it?
So if I remove money, then this is what I'm trying to tell myself now, which is that what was my motivation for starting my business?
Right.
And it was that I wanted freedom of my time. I wanted to live my life and not go into a confines of now I am going to work at a particular time and I'm leaving at a particular time. Obviously, everyone has different motivations in life. But for me, reminding myself that my motivation was freedom. Freedom to do what I want to do. And so now I'm trying to enjoy my life more on a day-to-day basis and not to feel guilty that when I am sitting at home enjoying a moment that I feel guilty that I should be at the studio. So for me, what I'm trying to hone into now is to recognize in any moment, am I procrastinating? Am I shutting down?
You are.
Am I being lazy? Or am I just enjoying my life because this is what's important to me right now? So it's about discerning what is my motivation.
You can do all those things and still.
Sorry?
You could you could procrastinate, be lazy, and still like have fulfillment. You don't think so?
What do you mean? In any given moment. So when I'm not at work. So for example, if I'm not in my studio.
Right.
So for the past 7 years, it's always been this 24/7 focus. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, I always feel guilty. I'm not working hard enough. I understand. Especially in the pandemic when all you had was your work and your studio. I just thought that the harder I work, that I will be able to get somewhere quicker. Why am I not this rhetorical success? Because I also didn't question what it was. What is success? Like, we have this idea that we're not there, but we often don't even know what there is. We're just beating ourselves up with this hypothetical stick of there.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to remove all of those layers and then say, first of all, I'm not going to be in the studio and be forcing myself to work 24/7 because that's not the life that I want and it's not the life that I wanted when I left a job. And so then, so I've shrunk down and I make sure I have days off, and then I make sure I have time off. And then I'm thinking but then when I have time off, I'm still feeling guilty. So then I'm telling myself, why am I feeling guilty? Am I having time off because I deserve time off? In which case I am resting. I deserve this time. I shouldn't be working in this time. And so then that takes off another layer, which is that I need freedom. I need to enjoy. But then that's on the next layer now is going back to what I've been thinking about. What is my purpose as a creative person? So as a creative person, I think it's important more than ever, or maybe more than other people. No, actually, I think it's important for everyone. I think everybody needs to live more audaciously. We need to do all of the things because for a creative person, I can't give if I'm not full. And so if I'm not experiencing all of the things, if I'm not experiencing all of the joys, all of the highs, all of the lows, all of the struggles, all of the food, all of the experiences, if I'm not living my life to its fullest capacity, I have nothing to give from. And so if I'm only working, at some point, I'm going to run out. And so this is the renegotiation that I'm doing with myself, which is when I'm fully experiencing joy, I actually need to go and do it. But in that, that's when I say I try and hone myself about those caveats. So, for example, next week I'm going away. I'm going to Singapore and Bali because it's my 40th birthday.
Happy birthday.
I'm going to enjoy it. But I have to, I still struggled with it because I'm like, why am I going away? I've already been this year to India in January, and then I went to Dubai, and now I'm going away. I'm thinking, but I need to be in the studio. I haven't been in the studio that much. I'm not producing. So I was feeling really guilty.
Yeah.
But then I have to think, am I going away because I'm just shutting down and not doing work? Or am I going away because this is something that's adding to my life, that's going to bring me fulfillment and meaning and fill me up so that I can produce?
I understand. So, why leather? Has anyone asked you that?
Yeah, of course. For me, leather was an aha moment, really. And I went to law school, and I knew that as soon as I got to law school, that's all I'd thought about. Like, growing up, I had no idea what I was going to do. And so I was good at everything. And so my teacher said to my dad, he should become a doctor. And so I chose all the science A-levels and I hated them. And I decided that I would do law because at some point someone had come to my school and said that lawyers make a lot of money. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to need money, so let me do that. And then I got to university and I had this idea that I would meet my people, because growing up, I wasn't surrounded by my people, whatever that means. I always felt different. I always was different. And the messaging that I got growing up was that the way that I thought, the way that I was, the way that I wanted to be, the way that I expressed myself was not right, was not acceptable. And so I thought I would meet my people. And then I got there and then I realized that these were not my people. There was nothing there.
Have you met them? Have you met them?
Well, at law school?
No, I mean in general in life. Like, do you feel more accomplished than meeting your people? Are leather crafters your people, or are
creativity? Yeah,
Right.
So when I got there and realized that, I decided that I needed to do something else. And so it's been a long journey for me, over 10 years of figuring out what that something else is. And I did lots of different crafts. So I tried lots of different crafts because I was in London and I did lots of short courses, but nothing appealed to me. I tried metal, I tried wood, I tried ceramics, I tried many different things. But it was only after I qualified as a solicitor that I took a leatherworking course, because it's not particularly accessible even now to just go into leather. And so I took a leatherworking course and it appealed to me straight away. So I don't know if we can say that I found the material or whether the material found me, but I think that maybe it found me. And actually, going back to what we said about education, a lot of the work that I do around my craft is about advocacy of the material. And so as a lawyer, I think it's come naturally to me. So I think the material found me and it uses me as a vehicle to...
We need him. That's the guy. Fair enough.
The cows found me.
I was going to say, because freedom, you can the freedom of time that you wanted, you could be a metalworker and achieve that. You could be a carpenter and achieve that. So that's why I asked why leather.
I think in terms of like the practicalities of it, so because I tried all the different materials, for example, if you're working in, and I'm sure the experts in any craft will tell me otherwise, but when you're working in wool, when I was working in wool, it seemed quite one-dimensional. When you're on a knitting machine, you're just doing the same thing. The material is soft. In woodworking, it's quite the opposite. It's very hard. The processes are hard. I find leatherworking is just such an amazing marriage of so many things. You've got a soft material, which you apply hard processes to, and there are many different elements to it. And the material itself is super versatile, not only in terms of the final product, but in terms of the ways that you can process it to do so many things. So it's a never-ending quest.
It's actually quite... I find leather very interesting. obviously. But I really find it interesting because there are so many different types of leather, and I think that's why I really like it. You know, soft temper, medium temper, and hard temper, and for me, that's like okay. And then you go into the colors and how. You know, you can apply it anywhere. You know, like just even finding out you can have leather flooring and it's pretty.
It's
like,
endless, really.
It's a pretty like interesting material, and I think that was the key takeaway. Like the thing that actually when I think about leather, I know it sounds kind of weird. When I think about leather, that's one of the most interesting things. How versatile, how much of a wide variety of it there is, and then also. Is the age factor as well. Not just that leather can grow, but it's been used for so long.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what else is as time tested as leather. You know,
Not many things. Many things.
Yeah, I still perhaps, but then there was a Bronze Age, there was an Iron Age, so not really. Whereas we can probably take it back to skin itself, you know, and that's why I find it so like intriguing. It's Yeah, it is enthralled. Well, I am definitely enthralled in
me
it.
too.
And yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I think at the very least, one thing that I know, which is why I really like leathercraft, is even if, I hope I don't, have a business, I will still be a leather
still love
crafter.
it, yeah.
And that's
important.
Me that's the most important. I still want to be making. The ability to make is the most important thing to me, and that's the key thing. Like I don't know if you were. I think with age, like if I get brittle or I'll still be able to like cut some leather. That's how I vision it anyway. And for me, that's a great
that you see yourself doing it for.
I see myself doing it full
which
stop,
is the most important
without limitation. So yeah, I think I quite like that.
You can always learn more and really push outside the boundaries. And what I'm really loving about leather now is that so many people are coming on into the craft and using the medium in new ways, not just in functional ways.
Yeah.
And I find that really exciting.
Ornamental ways.
Opening up whole new avenues of using a material.
Yeah.
So I find that exciting, and I want to explore that myself because I think I haven't allowed for play in my practice, because for me it was always about leaving something that I didn't like, and I put too much pressure on my craft right from the beginning for it to provide for me.
Right.
And so right from the beginning it was always based on it had to make money, it had to be a business. And I think that having that pressure, it puts a different flavor on what you do. And same thing with kind of like what you touched on before. Same thing with the phone, your camera. I think the fact that we grow up now when we enter the craft and we know there's going to be a camera looking at what we do. So I know that when I go back and I play, I'm going to put the phone away, because even the pressure of feeling that I'm going to have to take a picture of something and post it, that performative aspect of play, I want to remove that to see what happens when it's just for me. Yeah. And that's going to be hard, because I think even when your phone is away, I think we're so trained.
We're attached to it.
We're attached to performance.
Yeah.
Because we've been trained.
To performance. Why do you think we are attached to performance?
I think so. Because we everything we do has an element of it's going to have to be shared. We're going to have to show it. So how can we produce without performing without thinking that we're going to have to perform
to show it up?
And can that come from a different place? I don't know.
So I think being a leather crafter, 100% it is. I have to think deeper into it personally, but I think you're probably right. Everything about life is performative, or we've been attached, or we're attached to it. Oh yeah, well I guess it is because the very existence of, or the very like instance of me being in craft is a performative thing. Performing a ritual, or right for my dad's passing is what got me into leathercraft. You know what I mean? Honoring him, which is why we bought the cow in the first place. That is performative to. So I would agree then.
For me, it's more about how my work would be if it wasn't about that performance. What I mean by that is that because I derive so much of my worth from what I do, because growing up, the messaging, as I said, the messaging that I had was that I was not good enough, just being myself.
Really?
And so I derive a lot of my value and my meaning from my work. And in that case, it needs to be perfect. I don't actually know if my personal aesthetic is perfection. It might be really rustic work. I don't know.
Right.
But because I would never be able to put something out there unless it was perfect, because if it's not perfect, then it could be criticized. And if it could be criticized, I'm criticized. And if I'm criticized, then I'm wrong and I have no value. So I don't even know what my true aesthetic could be. I don't know what I would produce. So that aspect of performance in terms of things being perfect, not just in my work and my craft and what I produce now, but just anything, not being able to make a mistake or not being able to do things, because actually there's no such thing as perfection, and that I still have value and meaning and can be seen even though I'm not perfect.
But was the inadequacy because like the feeling of inadequacy, was that because of society or was that familial? Like what was, when you said you didn't feel like that when you were younger, or like was that because of family, or if you weren't a doctor, or if you weren't an engineer, or if you weren't, was that society? Because what's your heritage? Are you Indian?
Yeah.
You're Indian?
For me, for me, it was a family thing.
Right.
And it's being first generation in this country.
Right.
And, well, as you know, things are different back home.
Yeah.
And it's really hard when your parents have done things differently and they come from a different culture.
Were they professionals?
And everyone in my family is self-employed, and they're actually from Malawi. So it's also the way that I experience my culture is maybe 3 or 4 times removed, because I'm in this country, I was born here, my parents were born in Malawi, their parents were born somewhere else. So it's very much an indirect way of receiving culture. And so being here and being born here, automatically you're different because you're adopting 2 or multiple cultures. And so the way that I think, it's different now because my family is also caught up, because but when I was the first one, so I dealt with the brunt of being different, because I was the first one that they experienced that was adopting different ways of being and thinking and existing. And so just that existing in multiple cultures in this country, then if I was to express a way that I think about something or whatever, or what I might want to study or anything, I think.
So do you have siblings?
Yes.
You're the oldest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So and my dad is also the oldest. So I am the the front line of a new generation. Yeah. And so that's what I mean, just generally being the pioneer.
So that's actually quite interesting.
It's quite a burden.
Yeah. Do you feel it?
Sorry?
You feel it. You feel the pressure from the burden is what I'm saying.
And also, my dad had an older brother, and his name was Yusuf, and he died when he was young. So all of the pressure of this now saint-like person who died young was put on me, because I was the first one that was born. So not only did I have to fulfill everything from my nuclear family, but also my extended family, because I was the Yusuf who...
But was that communicated to you?
Yes, I think so,
was.
directly and indirectly.
Right.
Even when someone talks about someone that dies when they're young, it's always, it's always going to be idealized.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's like, he was so great. So indirectly you think he was
Yeah.
this person that was just amazing.
Right.
And also, and even my grandma
Yeah.
would say, that you're named after my son. And
Yeah.
so I think directly and indirectly it's communicated that there's this person who is larger than life, and that you have to live up to the expectation of this.
Yeah. I had a very different upbringing from you, definitely, and I think that probably translates, or it's definitely spills into probably why I'll just go ahead and do, and I didn't go for any formal training, is because actually my parents told me I could do whatever I wanted to do, and they didn't just say it, but they actually they propagated it in everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was no one thing that I could do or I should do. There are obviously, as an African child, expectations. But I'm the only son. So I think I had to confront myself about this, because I had a friend who was thinking the same thoughts, like, oh my gosh, the pressures from, growing up and stuff like that. And I said, I get it, but I haven't had to think about that. And probably one of the reasons why is because I didn't really have a negative experience on the pressures of what to be or what to become. But there was always a connotation of being successful. And I don't know what that success looks like as a child, you know what I mean? But if it's going to school, okay, I went to school. If it's being good at your studies, okay, to a degree I did that as well, quite well. But I don't know what success, there was no image of success apart from achieving, But I don't know. Maybe that's also, obviously, that's now inlaid in my character, where it's like, okay, I actually believe I can do. And I saw this meme of being a creator, and it's like, I have this can-do fallacy where I believe I can do anything, this and I just got to try. But I actually don't think I could do anything. I just know I can try, and if I understand something, I know I'm good with it, So,
but I think trying is important.
Trying is very important, yeah.
Because you also don't know until you try.
Yeah.
What did your parents do?
My mom's a nurse. My dad was an engineer.
But they didn't place any of those expectations on you?
No, they didn't. I think my dad was more, actually probably when I messed up the most, he was more like, get your shit together, and my mom was more push yourself, encouraging. Not that my dad wasn't encouraging, but I also losing him so early. There's a gap now of, gosh,
half life almost.
Exactly, literally half. So, it's just this thing where it's like, I don't know what he would feel about this.
Yeah.
I don't know how he would feel about it, because obviously, even when I started, his mom was like, okay, you're going to give up your job to do this. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. But even then, it wasn't, you're doing something wrong. There's also a part of me that I believe, whatever you choose to do, you also have to prove yourself in the theatre of life. You have to make people understand, or kind of bring them onto the journey of why you believe what you believe. You know what I mean? So you have to make something out of it to cement why you chose to do it. But that being said, if I wasn't any good at it, I think it would just be, well, you tried. Do you know what I mean? Get back to work now, So there's always that thing where there's space to try something. I think from my upbringing anyway, because I tried so many different things growing up. I could play with anything that I wanted to. Played with computers, played with radios, played with, wood. There was never a thing, oh no, don't do that. Oh, you will be doing this when you're older, so go learn this. It was more, you like this, then, go ahead. I encourage you through it. So I think that's a good thing. But I think that's also why I feel like, I can just look at something, try and reverse engineer it, and then say, okay, I'm going to make this, and then I start cutting up shapes to make that happen.
You know what I find really interesting is that I think also in your culture and in mine is that many people are self-employed. Like if you go to Nigeria, and if you go to Malawi, or if you go to India, so many people are self-employed. It's
Yeah.
actually a way of life.
Yeah,
Whereas
that's the norm.
it's the norm.
That's the norm.
People get by.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, when the kids say that we're going to, even everyone in my family is self-employed,
Yeah.
but somehow when I said that I was going to leave the law to do something creative and start my own business, I don't know if it was just because it's creative or it was a business that they didn't understand, but it was seen as, well, why are you leaving something that you studied for to do this?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how they switch. Or I think it's just this idea that this push towards education is the only way to self-improve.
Yeah. There are historical factors about it.
And it's not to say that obviously education isn't worthwhile. But
Yeah. I really liked education to the point where I considered doing a PhD. You know, but I think even I had to say to myself, why do I want to do this still? And I think, in all honesty, a big part of me was, I know somehow like my mom would love it. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, you know, like
doctor.
Yeah, well, not so much, but you know, like you achieve that, because there's a, you know, apart from being encouraging, when you encourage someone, I think you kind of share in the glory of it when they achieve something. You know what I mean? And I think with our cultures, you know, like parents are a big part of it, and how they view and how they see and how we, I don't know, honor them, or you know, like say, yeah, that means they did a good job. You know, so yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, but I don't know.
Would you say that your mum is proud of you now?
I don't think so. No, I'm joking that she is. No, she definitely is, and I think she's more braggy now about it as well. Yeah, you know, like she was in my studio, so you know she's retired, but she still works.
Yeah,
she can't do anything. You know, she can't do nothing.
Do nothing,
yeah. So, she was in my studio. I was like, okay, I said I was gonna come. Okay, my boy, you come. Just let me know when you come. So she comes, and she's like, okay, so what am I making? And I was like, you actually want to make? You know, she was like, yeah. And then she ends up making a bag, and now she carries it everywhere. Oh, I made this at my son's studio, and this is like this thing now. Where, yeah, and even the things that I've made for her before, she doesn't really carry it. But what she made in my studio with me, that way.
You need to train her up then and hire her.
I need to train her up, and it would be cheap labor as well. You know, she doesn't really need the money, so she's retired. So yeah, but that was, you know, that's kind of, it's a part of me where it's like, that's why I actually enjoy it. But I feel even more to it now because I've kind of made her understand
what it is,
why I like it. And I think she knows that, she gets it now. So it's like, even like her thinking, oh my gosh, like people buy your things. I'm like, yeah. Even the really expensive ones. Mom, I'm trying to put the price up. Because really, yeah. You know, so it's great having or helping her understand that, because it also makes me feel more fulfilled as well, to be honest with you. Because you know, I guess, you know, through their eyes and all that kind of stuff. So it's quite interesting. So yeah.
What do you think your dad would say to you? What do you think your dad would say to you if he was around?
I have no idea.
What do you think?
I think probably he would definitely be, I don't know, happy or proud to a degree, because I am my own, and that's something that we encourage, you know. And he's always, you know, kind of say, listen, you will be your own person. You'll have your own, be your own, because that's kind of what we encourage in our culture. So I don't know. I think he'd be happy with that. Yeah, I think so.
Thank you for listening to Outsider Craft with me, Yusuf Osman. My guest today was Uzo Okwuosa. You can keep the conversation going with us on Instagram @Yusico, and find out more about Uzo at Frank Horn London.